What's going on, guys? This is Media Guy Doug here with Punisher's Paintball. I'm going to come at you with some education today because I just like doing videos where I talk at a camera and just talk bullshit for a little bit. So if you happen to like this video on how to ramp a paintball gun and kind of what is ramping, like, I'm going to give my best layman's explanation because that's what I'm good at, and I think that's why you guys like me. So I will give you the Doug explanation of what ramping is and maybe some thoughts on why, because I like to talk. But yeah, hope you guys like this video. Please like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Leave a comment, have a conversation with us. What other things do you want to know about paintball? Go ahead and leave that one in the comments, and yeah, we'll catch you after the intro.
I'm so free.
All right, so what in the world is ramping? Why do we have it? What, who, what, where, why, when? First, probably a demonstration for those of you who might be new to here or new to paintball. To the untrained ear, you might hear this noise and think something very particular. So let's just listen for a second, shall we? I'll even back it up so you guys can see it shooting. Right? So you would hear that, and you might be inclined to say, oh, he's shooting full auto. It's fully automatic, right? Not really the case. So if you watch here, if I shoot this trigger and hold it down, okay, see, my finger has not moved, still holding down the trigger, nothing is happening. I'll even, here, I'm gonna turn the camera. Hang on, do some magic. Okay, here we are. So watch, I will hold down this trigger and it will not shoot, but it's still the same thing. I haven't turned anything on or off, right? I'll shoot. Oh, sounds like full auto, right? So ramping is essentially, you have to pull the trigger at a certain speed, a certain number of times per second to get the marker to sustain a certain rate of fire. You can define that in the board right here. The NXL and most tournament series today define it as 10.2, the limit is 10.5, but for the sake of like inconsistencies within the markers and the electronics, most people set their stuff to about 10.2. You give it plus or minus 3 for wiggle room so you don't get a penalty for shooting too fast, and that'll also play a factor here. So anyway, once again, this is not full auto. It's just that the gun gets capped out when you pull the trigger fast enough to 10.2 balls a second. Shut up, loader. So let's see, how fast do you have to pull the trigger? Okay, pretty slow, not happening. Let's go a little faster. Not quite, a little faster, let's see. Okay, so about that fast. Now that speed, I'm gonna say that's around 5-ish balls per second that you need to be pulling the trigger. Maybe somewhere between 4 and 5 balls per second that you're, so pulls per second really is what it comes down to. Pup, 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 pup. So what that will do, as long as you sustain that rate of fire from your trigger finger, from the actual trigger touching the micro switch, the gun will sustain 10.5 balls per second. You could set that to 12, you could set it to 22 if you have a loader that can keep up with it. Whatever it may be, doesn't really matter. But why? Why do we do this? What is the point? There's probably a lot of reasons for that. So one that I can kind of think of off the top of my head is it is significantly easier to reload your marker when you're able to ramp it and just use one finger, because this versus this is a whole different platform, okay? This is really only being held by like 2 fingers and my shoulder right now. So this is kind of hard to do that. I can, clearly, I just did it, but it's way easier to just, so something you can do, here, I'm gonna reload my loader here as we talk. Something that you can do is you get the ramp started with your 2 fingers, right? You get the ramp started that way. Sorry, Joel, I'm using a bag of paint here, but I think you're gonna like this video. Anyway, so you get your ramp started with 2 fingers, and then you continue it with the 1. So let's say I need a pod, right? I know I'm getting to the end of my loader, I'm shooting, and I got the 1 finger, reach in, dump a pod, and the ramp is down very short amount of time. Your stream is still up and your lane is there. That's the big thing, is keeping the lane up so that other people can't move, right? So that no one can pop out, shoot at you, make a move, whatever it may be. That's the big thing, is keeping the lane up. I think it also probably had something to do with maybe the massive amounts of paint that were getting used at events. Again, I wasn't around back then. I didn't really get into the tournament scene until about 2016. Have certainly seen and learned a lot about paintball and what it was back in the day, but I don't know everything. I think also it was kind of an equalizer, because not everyone has the ability, I'm gonna turn this off just so I'm not wasting all of our paint. Not everyone really possesses the ability to sit here and just rail really quick. I'll link to a video of Joel and I shooting uncapped semi-auto. As you can see, I can shoot very quickly semi-auto. Joel isn't able to as much. He might have been able to when he was younger and did it a little more often, but it's not really so much of a necessary skill anymore today, because anymore, fast triggering that's not, manipulated by an electronic marker is really just the mechanical ones, and you're mostly kind of fanning like this. Some of us with skinnier fingers, we can fit our fingers in there and do this, but even still, again, that is an actual skill set that people work on. So with the ramping thing, how do you work on it? Okay, how do you practice it? What I did, and I can't even say that I thought of this on my own, I got this tip from Mike from Tech PB. Used to love watching him growing up. He still does release videos here and there. He's awesome. Would love to meet him at some point. We would actually, I'd be happy to do a video with Mike from Tech PB. If someone knows him, send him this, please. Been watching him since I was like 13. But anyway, so one of his old videos used to suggest, put your tank on your marker, don't put your loader on so you don't drive your parents crazy. Sit, and when you're just watching TV, watching the boob tube at night, don't turn your air on. Leave your air turned off, leave your gun turned off, just screw your tank in and just sit and just walk your trigger. You can start slow. Might have to do this because you have to coordinate one finger hitting at a time. You can't have both fingers, here, I'll hold it up here. You can't have both fingers kind of doing this, or what I see a lot of people do sometimes is they'll like try to ramp, but the one finger will kind of stay and the other one will just kind of tap, and obviously this isn't gonna get you anywhere because it's not full auto, right? So it's a very slow process of practicing one finger at a time, but you do it enough and you're able to kind of really get that thing rocking. And you'll see some people will like really kind of stick their hand out as they're first getting used to it. They'll have the fingers out here. Eventually you'll kind of tuck those in, keep them on the bottom of the marker. And you'll even see like my bottom fingers do kind of scoot along with it, but nothing's really hanging off the side of the marker. So it's a lot of just practicing this, and you don't need paint, you don't need it. You can have an empty tank, gun with no battery in it whatsoever. The nice thing with the PE guns is you can turn on training mode, which is cool, so you're not destroying your solenoid, because I don't recommend just turning on your gun and turning off the eyes so you can hear the solenoid click. It's not really great. You don't want to do that too much. It's cool to check it out if you're servicing things, make sure your solenoid is working, but I wouldn't recommend sitting in front of your TV and just railing your solenoid like that. Not a good idea. But ramping is, at this point, also kind of a skill. So here, I'll turn the gun back on and demonstrate. So say you want to shoot off the break, right? So you're here, you pop up and put the lane there, right? I've actually seen a lot of kids now that didn't play back in the day when there was semi-auto who can't really do this, and they'll pop up and ooh, hold on, gotta turn on the air. Are we shooting? Cool. Anyway, so they'll pop up, and as you saw, you have to ramp up to that rate of fire if you're kind of single finger triggering it, right? So and it takes them a second, that takes a solid second to get paint in the air. At 10 balls a second, you're losing, you know, plus or minus 7 to 10 balls that you could have going through a lane before somebody gets there. So here's the thing, here's the difference, right? Here's what I see a lot of younger kids doing now with the single finger versus dudes that used to have to do a lot of this, or people who have worked on using both fingers. They can get it to ramp immediately, and I'll tell you why. See, that's immediate, right off the gate. There's no hesitation, the ramp starts. So the reason for that is something along the lines of, like, you know, in order to get it to ramp, you have to pull at a certain speed. But if you come out the gate with the trigger being pulled a certain speed, it will immediately ramp. I think it's probably got to be pretty close to maybe 8 to 10 balls. And I'll try to look into this and find it somewhere in a manual and drop it in. If I don't find it, I really don't care. I'm telling you now. So just, if you can get your fingers actually ramping fast enough off the bat, it'll ramp immediately. But there's a certain threshold. I wonder if I could do it with a single finger. No. So, and I'm getting pretty close to, that's pretty quick even with that one finger. So I would say you probably have to be really pretty quick with the fingers to get the ramp to just come out the gate swinging. But that benefits you because the more paint you have through that lane, the more chance you're gonna have at hitting the person running through it. Killing their snake player off the break, you know, giving your team a 5-on-4 advantage off the break and winning the point. So yeah, ramping is, a lot of people like it. Probably some out there that don't. I don't think it's a bad thing because, as I said, I think it makes it significantly easier to reload while you're playing. This is annoying. And also, I wouldn't be surprised if it has maybe something to do with like saving the amount of paint that gets used at events. Maybe I would say it was probably more so invented as an equalizer because not everybody can do this. And I think also there was a big issue with like cheater boards and different ways to cheat with the electronics and whatnot. So I think there was a big push to regulate and keep everything kind of capped at a certain spot in these games. I haven't seen a cheater board on a modern day gun. If they exist, I'm sure nobody wants to talk about it. But yeah, I have not witnessed it in my time. I've heard plenty of old heads talk about them, but I think there was also just a little bit to kind of regulate and keep things a little more fair across the board and get rid of cheater boards and just kind of level, which that's a big discussion too. Way back in the day, there was, or not back, I shouldn't say, this was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. This is 2023, this might have been 2018, 2019. This dude, I think his name was Matt, wanted to start the NPL, the National Paintball League. It was going to be super sick. They were going to film these matches and it would only be pro, and you know, if you were inside of paintball, you could still get the weekend live feed, all that, and watch it. You could go to the event, whatever, but it would only be pros playing. There would be no divisional. And his idea behind it was to have all really good camera angles, really good filming, very cinematic, and actually do post edits to make it very easily digestible for new people to watch paintball and kind of get the point of like, oh, he's keeping him pinned in so he can't go, or he just bunkered that guy. It just make it really easy for new people to follow, and they wanted to drop the episodes like 3-4 nights a week, just like football, baseball, like actually have games go on throughout the week that people can watch, make it easily digestible, which was cool. Wish that would have happened, but oh well, here we are. One of the cool things though, one of the cool stipulations he wanted to put in the rule book was that it would go back to true semi, because he felt that, as I had said, the ability to shoot fast and sustain that rate of fire was an additional skill that should be in paintball. Because, you know, in paintball, people have strengths and weaknesses, right? Some people are better at snapping and gun battling. Other people are better with their lanes off the break and like kind of gun dominance in that way. Those are skill sets. You can choose to work on those things and develop them. And you can choose to not. You might be better at something and just be really good at that thing, and it benefits you more to just keep being good at that thing. And that's okay. So this would add another kind of piece to the puzzle of like, well, can you get a lane of, you know, 18 balls per second that somebody can't run through? Can your whole team do that, or do you only have 3 guys that can do it? I thought it was an interesting way to add a layer to it. Now, in reality, do I want to do that all the time? No, it's exhausting. It really is, and that gets expensive. I think that gets expensive really fast because you are just blowing through paint. But I don't know. Ramping is cool. I think it's neat. I think it's a good way to keep things regulated. I also like the current rate of fire that we're at, that like 10.5-ish range. I think it was Ryan Greenspan who said, yes, it is slower than what people are used to, for sure. It changes gunfighting, but it's kind of the optimal, like, if you're actually good at paintball and good at playing, it's still fast enough that there's paint through that lane, or that you're really in that gunfight, but it's not so ridiculously fast that you can just rely on the volume of paint. You have to actually be a good player, be accurate, communicate with your team, know when to make moves. I think it's a good marriage of actually being good at paintball, having good paintball IQ, and still having a certain volume of paint in the air. But yeah, that's my spiel on ramping. Those are my little tips to try to help you guys get better with it. You can definitely mess with settings too on when your gun will ramp, but I'd be careful doing that because certain tournament leagues will have their own kind of definitions on that. Your best bet is truly just to leave it factory. You can mess with your physical trigger. There's no regulations on that. So definitely we have some videos on how to adjust triggers for certain markers. I would look into that. It'll make it easier for you to ramp, maybe kind of lighten up the trigger pull. But yeah, guys, without any further ado, thank you for watching. Really appreciate you guys stopping by the channel. If this is your first time, let us know in the comments, and make sure you subscribe. If you want to pick up anything from Punisher's Paintball, definitely please check out the link in the description. Just so you guys know, this is the Punisher's Ultimate 180R. This is a custom anno that we just got back from Outlaw. We really have a good relationship with those guys, love working with them, and if you want something done, please reach out to us and we'll work with you guys on it. Catch you next time.